disciples of Jesus look to the future. Listen to me, vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision is a waste of time, and vision with action can change the whole world. He will speak to you. The question is, are you listening?
It's going to be great.
This is going to be great.
It is. Okay, well, welcome to our podcast. We're so glad you're tuning in. This is a Real Strength podcast, and we like to cover anything we can that's going to add strength and value to your life. And over the last, I guess, year and a half
I don't know.
that we've been doing this podcast, we've had more requests for more podcasts on marriage and family. And all of those episodes are highest rated, shared, and watched all the way through. So we are going to respond to that and have an incredible episode today. And I'm going to let you, Dad, intro our guests.
We have today, everybody, joining us all the way from Aledo, Texas, an anointed place where God loves, Doug and Jodi Beard. And I love this couple. love what they do in the kingdom. Love their life. I love y'all's realness. So before this started, we were just sitting here talking, and Doug popped a mint in, chewed the mint up, and Jodi goes, "Your breath smells so fresh. I just had a mint." So we've got to get that. We've got to get that on the podcast. That compliment and that enjoyable response.
Right.
Just yeah.
Because I think one of the major factors of people in life and companionship is just really taking joy and delighting in where you are, who you're with. It's a choice. And I think you guys do that super well. Like, I don't know you as well as my parents do, but I know of you very well and just how involved you are in your community and your family. I've known of you guys for a while, and I think the one thing that stands out to me is how well y'all delight in each other in the lobby and the people that you're with and the conversations that we've been able to have.
The way you look at each other.
That's a very profound, I would think, prevailing trait about you two, which I'm excited to learn more about your story. I'll be learning a lot in this conversation, like firsthand, so I'm excited.
Well, something that impressed me about you all is you seem to enjoy life together. I know there are struggles behind the scenes, but just the fact you go to Israel and then you tie on a trip to Greece afterwards. I was like, I love this. They're going to go, together, learn about God, be in the Holy Land, have all that, and then they're going to have a recovery and a respite time. So that told me, there's some wisdom here.
Also, you should just go to Greece. That's awesome.
Yes.
Absolutely. Everyone should do that.
It might have been more of that. Right? We're close. May never get to go back. So we're going to do it.
I would too. Yeah. It's on my bucket list. But could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your story? And
well, first of all, I thought this was a marriage counseling session. So are we here to actually
We may actually get counseled.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
That'll be
a
post
counseling.
podcast. I'll let you guys handle that. I'm not married yet, so I can't contribute.
Oh, but I'm sure you have an opinion.
I do, yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're excited to be here for sure.
Yeah. Our story, goodness, where do you want to start? Just when we met? Or
sure.
Well, both of us, neither one of us grew up in a household where we as a family attended church, right? So we, but I believe that both of us prior to meeting had been saved and found that to be important. Mm-hmm. So when we met on, I think it was August 14th, 2022, and I still remember the day. I think it was that day, whatever that Wednesday was. When I met her from the beginning, that was kind of what really stood out to me. Right, is this she just kind of had this this peace and gentleness about her, but also just an incredible spirit.
Yep.
Right, she was young, she was vibrant, she beautiful, obviously, but she was very wise. And so I think that's what really attracted me, because at that point in time in my life, I was not looking for a woman, especially a young one. Right, but that's where God showed up huge. And I think from the moment we met, that's when, God showed up big time from the beginning.
And how old were you guys when you met?
22. All right, you can guess which one was 22, and then the other was 30.
But I didn't know it was 30. I thought he was 29.
Yeah. I actually celebrated a 30th birthday party with friends I grew up with, and it ended up being the 31st birthday.
He had forgotten as well.
I didn't even think about it, because I'd never really had a birthday after being a kid.
Yeah.
So never really celebrated it. So
that's pretty funny.
I will say, when I've first laid eyes on Doug, it was love at first sight.
Wow.
nice.
Yeah. It wasn't the most ideal situation because I was dating my boyfriend at the time.
Even better.
So I had to devise a plan to break up with my boyfriend. Sorry if you're listening, but it all worked out. God had a plan that was greater than mine, and it all worked out. And so ended up breaking up with my boyfriend, and the rest was history at that point. So.
Well, there was a little bit in between. It really took us a few months to get settled in with one another and actually go on a date. Because I was single and had a child, right? So being a single dad and then dating somebody younger, you're like, well.
And I had no idea that he had a child.
And so we were just getting to know one another and went on a date, our first date, which was a week after we met. It was a group of people. So
The truth is, I was very, very insecure and couldn't go on a date by myself. So I had to invite my girlfriends because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And so I invited my girlfriend. The problem is, on our date, they were hitting it off. And so we had to have a girlfriend meeting in the bathroom to say, look. And then we got that all straightened out. And then we ended up having a great time after that.
Yeah.
So in the bathroom, who said, look?
I think that she was there supporting me and encouraging me. And she was like, look, you need to get your act together, because I was so nervous that I don't think I was engaging in conversation. I think that was the problem.
Yeah.
And she helped me out. So she was like, okay, we're going to switch spots. You sit next to him. So she actually set me up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Are y'all still friends?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're still
that's
friends.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really can't be yourself and like really show who you are when you're so aware and so nervous. It's not fair.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to like get out of that space.
You been that way before, Bree?
Sure have.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I've covered this on the podcast before, but I used to have pretty major stage fright. I would freeze up. My hands would shake. My lip would shake. I'd forget the lyrics. I still forget the lyrics from time to time, but
Are you talking about when you were 2 and 3 years old?
no, up until through college.
Have you all ever seen that?
Never.
No.
Sam,
Yes,
have you ever
proof
seen that?
God
I haven't
delivers.
witnessed
No,
that.
I don't think she's kind of
Dad,
spread
just my
that out, so-
testimony. It's my testimony. Thank you for your compliment, but
You think that's going to stop me?
I wish it would.
I was going to ask you that. What do you do when you're nervous? I need some
Well,
advice.
I would have a debrief with my close friend or sister, whoever I was leading worship with at the time, and just say, all right, tell me what actually happened, because here's what my mind told me. And then they would kind of walk me through what actually happened. The amount of times I like fake quit singing with Bethany was pretty amazing. But I just started to catch what was triggering that nerve, and it was always a belief in my mind that would drive the emotion or the posture that would allow those nerves to be more important than the moment in ministry. So I had to start reframing my mind, the pathway, what I would allow myself to meditate on, consider, or even allow to be true. And the more I would have those moments of nerves lock me up, and I would intuit, like be more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Intuitive?
More of self-reflective, more, I'd give myself more space to sit with it. I would find, I could find it faster. So instead of after I was nervous looking back, I could find it while I was being nervous. And then I could eventually find it before I'd have a moment of nerves locking me up. And now it's like very rare that I'll start to have that. But when I do, I know what to do to help trigger the right response. Because your brain psychologically, like nerves and excitement feel very, very similar to your nervous system. It's what are you going to do with the thoughts? It's going to fuel that energy. So now I know how to take it towards passion. But at the beginning of it, it would lock me up. Like there was times I really couldn't even like move my legs. I would just be frozen in place. And Dad would be like, you should move around more. And I'm like, if I could, I would. I can't move my legs.
It's similar to like taking those thoughts captive and surrendering them to Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And occasionally it still randomly will pop up. Even this past Sunday, I had a moment where I could feel the little turn in my stomach and the thoughts in my knees. And I'm like, oh, I've been here before. I know what to do. And I just start to grab those thoughts and just lead my mind in the right direction. And then eventually it's not something I even think about. Like you get out to lead worship, and because worship is the most important
Right.
thing.
Right.
And I've been able to grab those little pitfalls that used to pull me down and do something about that. Now it no longer can hold me back from what actually matters.
Yeah.
But it takes time and practice. So
Yeah.
a little tangent away from
Yeah,
y'all's story.
For sure. No, not at all. I grew up very, very insecure, even not talking to adults, but really interesting. And so he coming into my life really shifted that. It was a man that came into my life for the first time that really showed me respect. And I think that built me up in a way that grew my confidence.
That's good.
And it's interesting about Doug too is he can't meet a stranger, and that was something I couldn't talk to a stranger, but he could not talk to a stranger. So I witnessed that and just how he would encourage people, and that helped me to grow because I used to not be like that at all. I was very insecure, and I would just do my business and then get out. And now we spend forever talking to everyone, like in the Starbucks or in wherever we are, which is such a beautiful thing now. But yeah, I hadn't witnessed that before I met Doug. So.
I would say y'all are probably the two most well-known people I know in Aledo. So the fact that you're like, oh, I didn't like to even meet new people. I'm like, you know all people. I don't know. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that happens because I don't want to be known, right? Which is really interesting that we have met so many people and are out there, and it's just a willingness to put ourselves out there. And that may go back to the whole community aspect, right? Even in our marriage, it's because of our community, I think it does thrive.
Yeah.
Right. And it, I think the quality of the quality of your life, I think really is dictated by the quality of your relationships.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
So that's kind of been something I'm just genuinely curious about people. And maybe that comes from my insecurity growing up. I just channeled it differently. I think maybe just kind of getting out in front of it and going, I'm insecure. And so I'd step out and have conversation
Yep.
just to kind of break the ice. And then it just kind of became something I kind of normally do.
Yeah.
I don't even really think twice about it. If I see somebody new, I want to get to know them.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is that God has a sense of humor.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
Bible
Absolutely.
says God sits in the heavens and laughs, and I've said this from the platform, and I'll say it many times. He looked and saw Dawn, he looked and saw me, and thought, let's put those two together.
Right.
This will be entertaining.
This will be fun.
Two people that couldn't be more opposite. And so I see that
True.
some in you all too. Areas that are similar, but areas that are really different. And that's where the fun comes in, is working out the differences.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I want to tell a story about you all in Israel, and then you can play on it
Okay.
and go from there. So we're in Jerusalem. We're toward the end of the trip in Israel, and we're going to the wet and the dry tunnels, Hezekiah's tunnels.
Oh, gosh.
So the wet tunnel, Hezekiah dug through the rock to get water into Jerusalem because I think it was Sennacherib from Syria was coming to attack. And then the dry tunnel was where the soldiers and the fighters could get in and go back and forth to different positions. So the dry tunnel is a short walk. The wet tunnel is a longer walk, and the water is still there. The water's still flowing out of the spring. And does it go to the River Jordan? Yeah, I think it goes to the to the Jordan River. And it's about, what do you think, a foot to 2 feet deep?
Like almost knees.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a foot to 2 feet deep. So everybody's got to decide. Do you not want to try either tunnel? Do you want to do the dry tunnel, which is what Dawn and some others did, Dawn, my lovely bride. But these two want to do the wet tunnel. And so the wet tunnel, the height of the ceiling comes all the way down to 4 feet and then goes up to 7 feet, and there are no lights. So you have to take your phone. And so you turn your phone on to have light, and you gave your phone to somebody, I think. And so you used your phone, and it required teamwork because I was in front and y'all were right behind me.
Yep.
Right.
And you weren't that far removed from a knee replacement or something, right? Or meniscus surgery or something?
2 knee replacements.
It was
Okay.
between the two knee
Between
replacements.
two
Yeah.
knee
Yeah.
replacements.
So it was
Okay.
about
So you were like, think I can do this as a surface level? I said, I've not done it before either. They didn't have it open the other 3 times
Right.
we've been here.
Right.
First time's been open, so I'm really excited to do that. Anyway, all the way through, I could tell you all came from different worldviews, different personalities, but yet when it came time in the crunch to become a team and to work on something and to set your vision on something to accomplish, you did it. And so I was just smiling all the way through the tunnel because I've got my phone, I've got my light on, and I'm in front trying to kind of give some warnings of level changes because it's all
Yeah.
cobblestone.
right.
And then you're giving and you're following her so that she can have the light. I'm thinking that's a good thing, men preferring their wife, which was awesome. And so we're making our way through, and I'm kind of tossing little things back to try to make it easier on a rough spot here or some little rocks here or stuff like that, and you're passing those back, and just the way you all worked your way through. So talk about how you've decided to become a team, and in spite of being very different, because every marriage has differences, and there's just no way around it, but you have somehow learned how to team up. And that would be an example of it happening, because you could have just as easily fussed at each other the whole time, fought, and you said, I'm not doing this because I don't have a phone. No, so you gave it to her, I think. That you gave yours away, and then she used hers anyway. So,
And a lot of couples do that, and then we're all stressed out.
Yeah, and it stresses the whole group out. That some couples, fussing instead of just enjoying life. You're in Jerusalem, about to go through Hezekiah's wet tunnel.
Right.
Why are you going to fight? Sometimes you just wonder, why do people do that? And you all chose to be a team. And so share any nuggets pop into your mind on teamwork and.
Well, I would say that I realized as our relationship has grown and matured, and she's grown and matured, that I realized that the best resource and partner that I have is her, hands down. And so whether I'm asking her, deep theological questions, wanting to know answers that she may know, or have insight to, or just randomly, hey, I'm thinking about this. Let me run this by you. She has enough wisdom, and I trust that. And so being a teammate and working together is a no-brainer.
That's good.
Right? Because I've just been able to witness her in positions of leadership, of teamwork. That's good. I've watched her in athletic competition. I've watched her at work in our relationship with other people. And so I'm just like, yeah, if there's anybody I'm going to partner with, and, it's her.
And the truth is that I usually don't know what I'm doing. So that's when we just pray.
It usually
God
starts
does.
there. They're typically, if we have to make a difficult decision, or if we're going to do something, embark on a project that's challenging, we will start by praying. And then every time we get sideways, we go back to praying.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Or if we don't pray first, we definitely will get sideways. I mean, on major decisions that we make, a lot of times there can be tension, and we can certainly argue. And as if our pride is in the way, and if we're stubborn and we don't surrender and pray through it, then sure, we'll have so much tension. So that teamwork is not the best. It takes us both surrendering our will. We're both controlling. So it's confession, but we're both very controlling. And so if we don't surrender that will, then it's harder to make a decision. Yeah. So there's been plenty of times. And so, there's great examples of when I wasn't the one that was going to back down. And so I would go weeks and we would fight and argue until I finally prayed, and God was like, what are you doing? You need to get out of the way. You need to surrender to this, even though I didn't think it was the best idea. But God uses all of it. So I would say 100% we have to pray. And when we don't, we see the consequences of that.
Yeah. And arguably, too, for maybe most other marriages, starting off with a child in the mix probably required your teamwork faster. So what did it look like for you guys coming together and jumping immediately into family life?
Well, I was already there, right? And so it was, at the time, entering into a relationship, I wanted to be as protective of my daughter as I could be, right? So she hadn't met anybody. I hadn't dated anybody. Not that I hadn't gone out on dates, but she didn't know. Sure. And so when Jodi, the only hesitation I had about introducing Reagan was the fact of introducing Reagan, of saying, hey, I come with a child, right? So it's not just me. Once she responded to that as, oh, I love children,
I was 22 years old, so I didn't have the wisdom that he says I have, but so I had no idea. So I was like, oh, I love kids, which I do, but I had no idea what I was stepping into.
Yeah.
No, but it was. And so when she finally met Reagan, and I could see that there was a bond between the two of them, just her attention towards Reagan, her kindness, her patience, it was something that was natural. And I don't know if it came from a place of that it was just natural for her to do that, or maybe it was something in I know in my past, I always craved that, right? That was the same way, that she wanted to be nurturing and caring.
Good.
But also edifying me in that position as well, and lifting me up as being a father. And I think because of Reagan and her seeing me as a father is what made her interested, really.
100%. We've talked about that a lot. Is Reagan grew Doug up, and Reagan was his first love. And so I don't think I would have fallen in love with Doug if he hadn't gone through that experience. So God definitely used that experience. And it was so easy to fall in love with Reagan. I mean, she was this beautiful brown hair, big eyed, ponytail, bopping around little 3-year-old when she came into my life. And I mean, we clicked from the very beginning. From then on, challenges did come, but from the very beginning, it was super easy to connect with her. And I didn't have to be the mom. I got to be a friend.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun in the beginning of our relationship with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and because that was so much fun, and I knew that she was going to be a great mother, right? And I loved Reagan so much that I'm like, yeah, let's have a child right now. This is great.
I think that's when challenges started blending our family, is when we began to have babies. And I think there was probably, Reagan would probably say there was a little bit of jealousy there. And so that's when that dynamic was more challenging for sure.
And what's their age gap between the two?
8
Yeah.
years? 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right at 8 years.
So Reagan, 8 years older than
Gavin.
Gavin. Gavin is 3.
15 months older than Ryan.
Okay.
So
I missed.
So right now Reagan is 26,
26.
Gavin is 18, Ryan's 17, Noah is 12, and little Elijah is about to be 18 months. So
next Friday.
yeah.
That's exciting.
That's fun. That's making the whole listening audience smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
26 to a year and a half.
Yes. So
to a year and a half.
Yeah.
we are a quarter generation.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep.
So we have lots of dynamics here. We have blended family, we have age gap in y'all's marriage,
Yeah.
and then we have a spread out age gap with kids.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you were going to go from like marriage culture to family culture right away. So how did y'all establish good marriage culture while establishing a family culture?
Or did you?
Yeah. I was going to say, we probably made a lot of mistakes early on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was something that we just, as we got older and more, in our relationship and grew, we just talked about what our desires were as a couple, as a family, with our children, relationships. And it just was kind of something that's been fluid. We just continue to work on it, still work on it.
Yeah.
Right.
We were baby Christians too when we first got married. I was saved when I was 20, and I met him at 22.
Wow.
And I had just started going to church. I don't even think I had opened a Bible yet when I had met Doug. God was actively working my life, but I didn't have context for him. And then Doug was recently baptized when we met, so his faith was just growing. So we still were going down that partying path, and so being a parent and then still living in the world, you could see that could cause a lot of problems too. So we brought things into our marriage that were definitely unhealthy in the beginning. So we had to undo a lot of that as well and grow from that. So
How did that happen? Was there an inspiration? What was the motivation of that?
The motivation to change, to be better.
Yeah.
I just, because neither one of us wanted to fail, right? And I didn't want to fail her, and she didn't want to fail me.
That's good.
And I think you kind of referenced how we look at each other, on occasion. I think it's the first time in my life that I ever looked at somebody and I enjoyed how they looked back at me, right? And so that motivated me to go, you know what? I don't want to lose that. I appreciate that. And so that just made me want to be, better, right?
I love that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah, I think there was a series of things too. I'm like, I can't remember one thing and what kind of shifted in our life, but there's a series of things from like abuse of alcohol, pornography, like just incidents that happened in our marriage. And then God uprooted us too. And in that he grew us. So there's just a various different things that started shifting. So I don't know when it was. I got baptized after Gavin and Ryan were born. I still hadn't even been baptized at that point. And so I think one really cool thing about our walk too was we dove in. Like, the church looked at us when we started going to church at first. They looked at us as leaders immediately, even though we had no idea what we were doing and we still hadn't even opened a Bible. And so, but they saw a potential in us, I'm guessing, and they asked us to come on to leadership. And so not in a way, but in a serving way, in a serving capacity, and to lead a Bible study. I'd never led a Bible study before. I hadn't cracked open a Bible. That'll make you go get a Bible real quick.
Right.
So I think that played a huge part actually in our growth, was the church believing in us.
Yeah.
And so taking on leadership roles, I remember going to a Barnes & Noble and getting a Bible, because if I was going to lead a Bible study, I needed to learn the Bible.
That's awesome.
And so that pushed me. And then, God just starts working things out in your life and growing you. And at that point, one thing that did change in us is we did join the church and became plugged in and started serving. That's when we started growing.
That was Houston or here?
That was here.
That was
We were in. We had originally started going to a fellowship church in Grapevine. That's when I experienced worship for the very first time, and it changed me and moved me. And then from there, the Fort Worth campus was opening. We had met the campus pastor and another team member there, and so they kind of just, I think, kind of took us under their wing a little bit and brought us in. And so very quickly we became like the lead greeting team. And so that was a lot of fun. We did that for years, and we really enjoyed that. And that was another way of like God putting us out there when we didn't really want to be put out there, but we were. And that holds us accountable too, when we're out in the spotlight. So
what a lot of people don't realize is when you're the leader, you're forced to run faster than the followers.
yeah.
And some of the followers will want to be the leader, so they're going to be nipping at your heels. And that has always been a motivation for me in life and in ministry, is to make certain I'm staying ahead for the sake of being able to show the way to the ones coming behind. So that's what you're speaking to. That is a principle of spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't care, then they won't try to learn in order to help people come along in their wake.
Yeah.
Right.
But the fact that you care, that's huge.
Well, there was probably, I think the biggest shift might have been, I want to say probably about 6 years into marriage, maybe 5. There was, at that point, you're still trying to get to know one another and cohabitate with one another, and maybe hide that side of yourself that you don't want the other to see. But then there was a moment where there was enough of that, right? There was a need for a shift, and I felt God just telling me, hey, it's time to talk and be honest. And so I remember us standing in our kitchen in Aledo, the first house we had there, and me just kind of opening up. And it was the first time in my entire life, I believe, that I just opened up and was honest.
Wow.
Here it is. Here's what I've told you that is not true. Here are the things that I desire, that I want to do, right? And here's why I'm sharing this with you, right? So kind of trying to pretend and be fake for her so she would continue, right, to go back to look at me the way that she looked at me. And so that was the big shift. It was, okay, we can be honest, we can talk through these things, and then you realize, okay, I can accept that. This is okay.
And it was the silliest thing. He'd been keeping a secret from me. That was the silliest thing. But to him, it was so big. And so it's interesting, what we keep from each other, that we don't believe that the other one's going to extend grace. But there was so much grace to be extended. It was because it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But he felt so relieved. Like, you could just see the burden. Like, he was in tears, and you could just see the burden lifted once he shared this with me. And that definitely brought us closer together, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because when we got married, it was a little unconventional, I guess not the marriage day, but basically I proposed the day before the wedding. but the wedding had been planned for 6 months. Right. So
Wait, how did that work?
So I told you, like, when we first met, like, it was love at first sight.
Right.
I shared that with you, that I'm a little controlling. And And so I was a little weird with like numbers and stuff. I don't know if you are, if anyone can relate, but I wanted to get married in an even year, and I wanted to get married in the month of May. And maybe you've experienced going through that because maybe you're going through this. So maybe you can relate. And so I was like, we can either get married in 6 months from now, or we can get married in a year and a half from now. What would you choose? And so it was kind of like an ultimatum to him. That was the marriage proposal.
Well, in there, we were also living together.
And
And as we were growing in our faith, we realized this is not
okay. Yeah.
Not okay.
Good.
And so when she said that, up to that point, I just thought she was crazy. I'm like, you were crazy hot, right? And I didn't at the time thinking it was going to last. I was just going to enjoy it as long as I could.
Okay.
Right. And then so when she threw that out there, I was like, I'm in. And
boys think so much differently than girls. I don't know.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And so as we got closer to the wedding, I realized it became real. Like, okay, I really should honor her with this proposal. So I proposed the night before at a dinner with our family and friends. And so it was. So
you made it like a big event, so to speak.
It was totally a surprise to me.
It was a surprise to her. She was expecting it at the rehearsal dinner 2 nights before.
My girlfriends told me, so he sat me down on the washer and dryer. I remember this in our little rental. And he was like, I just want you to know that I can't afford the wedding ring. And because we'd put one on layaway, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I just want you to know I can't afford it. And funny story, but I thought Doug was independently wealthy when we were dating because he quit his job. Come to find out he hadn't quit his job. He was actually let go. But I thought he had quit his job to date me. So I was like, oh, he must be independently wealthy because he quit his job to date me. And we were going on trips and it was wonderful. And
Wow.
And you see why I think she's crazy.
He was burning through his savings.
And that's,
So we did put in early on in our dating, we put on these, facades, which were probably not healthy, but regardless. So I thought he was independently wealthy. And then, the week of the wedding, he sits me down and was like, yeah, we can't afford the wedding ring. And I was like, it's okay. It's just God trying to tell me that I don't need material things, Yeah. And my girlfriends who are my bridesmaids were like, no. He's going to propose. And I'm like, no, he was serious. And they're like, no, he's going to propose at the rehearsal dinner. And sure enough, the rehearsal dinner came and there was no proposal. And so I was like, see, I told you there's no ring. There's no proposal. And the truth was he was playing basketball with some buddies and didn't get to the ring shop in time.
Yeah,
right?
That was the truth. Yeah.
But he made up for it the next night.
Yeah, well, because we lived at Firestone, and there's a gym on the first floor, right? So we were playing basketball, and I was like, okay, I got to go out to the rehearsal dinner, and then realized, wait a minute, I got to be out there at like 6, and it's 5. There's no way to get to the store to get the ring. So I just went and figured that nobody would even worry about it until I got beat up the very next day from all of her bridesmaids.
Oh, absolutely.
So then I'm like, schedule a dinner. All right, we'll do this. So we pulled it off. It worked out perfectly. But again, that let me see that it wasn't about the possession of the ring. Because there was so much grace in the statement, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing that we do or attempt to do for one another is to show grace in the moment so that we're not at our best, right? Because
we have to forgive quickly a lot. Because we mess up a lot. And so.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, right, Genesis, right, after the fruit, right, when they're cast out. And it says that, I guess Eve is going to desire her husband, but he's going to be the leader. And it wasn't that she desires her husband physically attracted. She desires his role as the leader. And so knowing that, we communicate about that a lot, and we talk about it, and we show grace because we're both controlling, right? She's I'm going to get stuff done.
He just admitted that on air.
That I'm controlling?
We have proof, yeah.
Oh,
And
I desire to be controlling. I would love to be able to control anything.
So that's why God's
but nobody
working on
allows
us.
me to do it. Yeah. So nobody allows me to do it. But yeah, I think in those moments we will, like 2 rams, butt heads. And then you have to step back and figure, okay, one of us is eventually going to open up, and I think the Spirit will convict whoever it is that, okay, the other one may have the better idea. Maybe you be humble, and
one of us or may forgive faster than the other, maybe.
oh no, I forgive just as fast. I
We're
just
the
may not
same
apologize as
timing.
fast.
Oh.
I may be a child and hold on to that apology a little bit, a little bit longer than
Yeah,
you.
it's the forgive but don't forget situation.
I don't have to apologize.
Okay.
So apologize quickly.
Yeah. That's good.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should take this and give her. This should be giving
this
her.
is
I know
Yeah.
it's going
counsel.
to happen at some point that we just redirect this to me, but I'm going to redirect it back to you guys.
For everybody that doesn't know, Brianne is now engaged.
Yay!
She's going to become Mrs. Charnecki, and that will happen in August.
We're so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
So
exciting.
power
times.
couple, both called to ministry.
So exciting.
So it's going to be exciting.
Thanks.
That is
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
So we
Yes.
brushed by two things that I think y'all could speak to that are good. First of all is confessing a sin or a wrong, and you received it and helped worked it out.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more about that. Then also I'd like to hear more about how the Holy Spirit let you know that living together wasn't God's best.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so many are listening. They don't know how to work out a
Right.
problem. It's always a fight. It's always, knives and
Yeah.
machetes, and it's always bloody. And so many couples that are in church life and that aren't yet in church life, living with that fear, if I'm honest, I'll be rejected. But you all have talked about you had a grace that was there early on. And so I'd like to hear more, if there's any thoughts the Holy Spirit's bringing to mind right now about you receiving his confession. And then that's number one. Number two is how the Holy Spirit lets you know, being man and wife physically before you're man and wife in covenant is not the right order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whichever one you want to
Yeah.
tell us some more, because this is really going to help the people that listen.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
the first thing that came to my mind was whatever happens before the marriage bed affects the marriage bed. And that we learned the hard way. And I would say if I did have any regrets, those would be the regrets that I have in life. I wish that I had stayed pure for our marriage. And I think you would probably say the same. But we brought problems into our marriage because of that. And so anyone that has the chance to do that, again, hear me when I say that was the biggest regret that I still carry. So I would say if you can stay pure, stay pure. And even I talk to my friends that have gone through, will come back to us, but gone through divorces or going through divorce too. I'm like, you have the opportunity to start over and do this again. And so being pure is a huge thing. So we weren't. We brought baggage into our marriage, and obviously Doug had a kiddo, and so it brings about complications, and then we can speak to the other part. But
Yeah, there's two areas, right, that really impact marriages, right? The financial area, right, and then of course the intimacy area, right, and we. Going into our relationship, we were dead broke, right? So we were already,
But we thought we were
at
wealthy.
a disadvantage, right? Yeah, I was independently wealthy for about 45 days, but we were literally, there was job loss, there was debt, right, and then we brought pornography in our marriage. So we started out in a space where it was like spiritual warfare immediately.
Yeah.
And so when we sat
all
down,
while being baby
Yeah.
believers.
baby believers, right?
Right.
But we were so committed, hey, we're going to fight for this marriage. We're going to fight for this relationship.
Good. That's good.
That you sit down and you open it up and you're like, okay, this is what the books look like. Right? This is where we, the truth financially where we are.
Yeah.
Right? So everything monitored, everything's merged, everything is there to be seen by the other. And then, of course, just, confession of sin, being honest with one another. And then showing grace. I think that's the best thing, the biggest gift that she can give me, right? Like God gives us is grace.
Yeah.
And we don't drudge up the past. It will come out and we'll talk about it, right? Because even being on this podcast has made us talk about a couple of things. Like, do we want to share that?
Yeah.
And so, and we will, but you don't beat the other person up with it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If when one of us is not at our best, right, we don't bring whenever they are, like I'm trying to get better, right?
Right.
I'm going to do better. I'm not going
You
to do
don't
more.
use those things
You don't
against
use that
each
against
other.
them.
Yeah.
Right. If it's under
Right.
the blood,
Yes. Yes.
Christ has cleansed
Right.
it.
Yes.
Now, if you need to pull it out to try to help somebody else that has an issue, the very same
Yes.
as that,
Exactly.
then you just do that, but you still keep it under the blood. You don't let it come out
Right.
and become
Yes.
a new thing in the devil's arsenal.
Yes,
to
that's
assault
good.
You with.
He makes all things new.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And so that's why I think that people can move past, marriages that didn't last into new relationships, right? Difficult to do because there's a soul tie there forever, and then you have a child, and you're committed to parenting that child with the other parent. They're a part of your life,
Yeah.
right? So Reagan's mom was a part of Jody's life from the
still
beginning,
is,
and
yeah.
still is.
Yeah.
And they both worked hard. Neither one of us, Susan and I both knew, hey, all right, we're not compatible. We were still brokenhearted that it ended, and we went through that and had to experience it. And then there was a lot of apologizing later to one another.
Yeah.
And then, but at the same time, having to forgive yourself and be able to move forward, into a new relationship and not be afraid to be transparent.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because here it is.
So how the Lord show you all how to receive each other when you're being transparent? Because generally speaking, most of the audience that's listening and watching, something comes up and it's immediately a fight. It's rejection. It's slander. It's put down. It's bloody. But you just said,
Yeah.
here it is, and that she showed you grace.
So a couple of things that come to mind, but because we had pornography had entered into our marriage early on, even though we had both mutually agreed that wasn't going to enter back into our marriage, it did. And see, that's the danger with it is like individually, like together, you're like, sure. Individually, it hurts the other person. And so I had found, again, we were just still baby believers, and we were still just had started going to church and serving, and I had found some receipts randomly that and so I had called to see what they were, and I'd found out that pornography was purchased on a work trip or whatever, and I was completely hurt. And in that moment, praise the Lord, our church was literally right across the street from where I worked.
Wow.
And that afternoon, like, I had to leave work. I couldn't stay there. And I went, and the church was closed. It was probably like a Wednesday random. And I'm just like banging on the church door.
Yeah.
And praise God that our pastor and then my friend, who was a female who served with us, they opened the door and they counseled me through it, because Jodi would not have been able to respond well. I was immature at that time, very insecure. So that kind of thing would just really set me off. And so talking with them and counseling with them, and you would never know this, but at the time, our pastor also shared his desire, and there was a female with us too, but it was just very open, transparent conversation about lust and about what this looks like. And I think I really needed to hear that and go, wow, a pastor can really struggle with this too. Like, this is, I can go back to my husband. Like, I don't know. It was just, it showed me the sin in a different light, and that this sin isn't greater than my sin.
Yeah.
And that has been a common theme that God continues to show me, is that I can justify my sin, and I can make it sound prettier and look prettier, but it's still ugly sin, and it's just as ugly as his. So I'm not better. So God continues to grow me in that way. So I was able to leave there feeling encouraged, feeling built up, and feeling equipped to be able to go and have a conversation with him that night. And it was really just came out of a place of humility. I don't think I would have been able to show him grace if I had not been counseled with prior.
Yeah.
And so we had that conversation, and it was great. And that was a stepping stone for us to really really want to fight for our marriage. And we stepped into marriage counseling, Christian marriage counseling, which was wonderful. And it was so funny because, of course, I walk in very prideful thinking that this is all about him. And very quickly, the counselor turned it around on me to show me how controlling I was and how I was pushing him to make some of the choices he made. So it was very eye-opening and shifted my perspective. But I don't know if that answers your question, Jeff, but
I think I can summarize. Unfortunate thing hit. You chose to go to the Lord, and literally knocking on the church door. Now, I'm not encouraging our audience to run to the nearest church and knock on the door, but get to the Lord. Get to the presence of the Lord and get to people that love the Lord, because you're talking about your friend as well. And then that softened the blow and got you in the spirit and out of the flesh, which allowed for you to be able to see that grace, that's what grace does, is working in her life. And so then that kept you from feeling shame and wanting to hide, because there's so many things that stay hidden in marriages.
Right.
And it just gives the enemy, John 10, verse 1 and verse 10 tells us Jesus is the door of our life, but the thief tries to get in. And so Jesus explained the thief has to come in some other way. So if he can't go through the door into somebody's life or marriage, because Jesus is standing at the door, then the other way is through a window, and windows always lock on the inside. And so when one or other, just like as an individual, when I do something against God, I'm the one that opened the window. He didn't.
Right.
He let the evil one come in. And so in marriage, the two become one. And when the enemy gets in, it's very important that the one who didn't let the enemy in brings the enemy in a different way.
Right.
By not showing grace, by not trying to get with the Lord, by not trying to work out the issue toward God, rather than just trying to solve a problem that's going to make you feel like you won.
Right. Yeah, and I think with what the Lord did for her in that moment and how she would respond to me, allowed me to kind of be curious about, okay, why would I do this? What was leading to this, right? And so this was a time frame that's not far removed from that moment in the kitchen about opening up about things. And so that was the first time I had opened up about it. And then this was shortly after that, but there was job loss, there was some decisions that weren't the best. And so there was just some things going on in my life where I just was like, okay, what am I doing? Yeah. And then that was even more of it, right? Then you do that, in I think Kansas City, right? And you're like, okay, I can't do that. So we went to counseling, and then that kind of led to, again, opening up even further, right? Being curious, right? Spiritual warfare, right? Going back into myself and going, okay, what's causing that? What's the root issue? And that's probably been the journey that I've been on since then, for the last 15 years of our marriage, is trying to figure out who I am, right? Made in the image of God, right? How can I honor him? And then, but what in my flesh leads me to either be really angry or want to isolate and medicate, right, out of shame or embarrassment, right? And none of that's from the Lord, right? That's because that's what the enemy does. And so that just opened us up to even more conversation, more transparency, right? And just unloading more. Hey, maybe this is where I was. This is my headspace, right? As a man, I'm struggling at this moment, right, with my mental health, but I'm a prideful man, so I don't want anybody to know that I'm struggling with my mental health, because I'm supposed to be Dougie Sunshine, right? Because I'm really good at putting on that persona of everything's great, right? Which is just really just an insecurity of like, I want you to think everything's great, right? And so I don't want to let anybody in. And so when I started letting her in, that stuff started changing.
She brought some of the Lord in with her.
She brought the Lord with her, and he grabbed a hold as well.
Let's just bring it into the light.
For her as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, mine, God continues to show me where I'm very controlling, and because I am controlling, and speaking to wives a lot of us are, it pushes our husbands away. I will never forget when our counselor first drew this little tennis court, and he was like, okay, Jodi, where do you see yourself on the court? And I was like, I'm right here on my side of the net, and Doug's on his side of the net, and we're volleying back and forth. And he was like, no. He was like, Jodi, Doug's in the stands. You are on your side, and then you jump to the other side, and then you jump back and forth, and you take all the balls with you. And Doug's so tired of it that he's sitting on the stands over there. He's like, you're going to have to allow the ball to drop for Doug to come back and play and want to volley with you. And that was really eye-opening to me, to learn, like, okay, I got some issues that I need to work on. And I think the beautiful thing about that is, like, when we know where our growth opportunities are, then we can allow the Lord to work on those things, because we can surrender them.
Yeah.
If we just walk around like I do a lot of times, just unaware, and everything's rainbow and roses, and I'm going to stuff it all away, then I can't work on it. So we have to bring it into the light. So we've continued to just try to do that, be honest with each other, and bring our issues into the light. And praying together is something that's so transformative. Yeah. That didn't come till our mature, until we became more mature. But praying together has changed our marriage.
Good.
Because it's humbling.
Absolutely.
And we can be honest with each other.
Yep.
So that's
one thing
really
I
good.
love about your stories so far that I've learned in this conversation is that you both are not afraid to grow in every stage of your marriage.
Good.
And I would say you arguably are prioritizing growth. I feel like a lot of couples are going to wait to have kids because they want to grow first, or when they're having kids, they put their own personal growth to the side and it's all about the kids. But you guys have had to juggle so many factors to pursue growth and to stay connected. Do you have any tips about that? Do you have any, I don't know, like insider information you can help couples who are listening who feel like, man, I don't know how they could have pursued growth and healing and the Lord and their family and their finances? It's a lot. And so I just find that a lot of people are like, we'll get to that when we are here. You guys, you said, doesn't matter where we are. We have to be strong everywhere that we are.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned becomes the permanent delay.
Right.
It just keeps getting kicked down the field and never is picked up and dealt with. So anyway, I agree.
Yeah.
So
Well, God doesn't give up on us, that's for sure. So he doesn't allow us to. But I would say there's been different paths. Like, we have individual growth. So we both have community around us. So we both are part of groups, community groups, Bible studies. He has men's groups. I have women's group. So we're focused on individual growth, which is so important. And those friend groups have been tremendous. So they're like sounding boards for us. So, and they hold us accountable.
good.
And they know both of us. So I can't just like spew all my stuff and they're like, oh, I can't believe you're going through that, blah, blah, blah. We affirm everything. No, they know Doug. So they're going to be like, so what are you doing about that? And they'll point us back to Jesus.
Yeah.
good.
So our friend groups are amazing. And I think a lot of people, I don't know how we've been so blessed to have the friend groups that we do, but I think a lot of people are missing that in their lives.
Yeah.
Sure.
No
And
doubt.
that community is huge. And then I'd also say, like, we take walks, we throw the football, and we take vacations together.
Awesome.
That is
Yeah.
important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Well, it's that time together, right? I mean, with so many moving parts, right? When you have 5 children, a grandchild, both of you work full time, you have additional projects, you have ministry, right? You have groups, right? In church, you have to sit down and prioritize things, right? There's too much going on. So you have to put first things first, right? Faith first, time with God, and then together, right? And it's important to have friends. I think for us, our marriage is thriving now because we do have friends, as Jodi said. We have friends that know both of us intimately, that we can share with, that won't allow us to speak,
Ill will.
of the other.
Yeah,
Right?
that's great.
Not
That's good.
slander in any way. And I don't think we ever have, but they've always held us accountable.
Sure, that's just not even
right?
their culture.
And you don't. Even away from Jodi, I don't slander, right? I may make a joke to a close friend that knows Jodi intimately, right? That, okay, I understand, but then let's talk through. And so as the man and the husband, right, she wants me to lead. And so having that responsibility, I think sometimes in her controlling ways, if I witness that it's, hey, she's doing great, right? I'm going to support her in that. Then I'll step back and let her take the lead. Other times I'm going to have to ask her, I need your help on this. And then other times I'm just like, no, I'm going to go to the Lord and pray about this because we're not on the same page. Mm-hmm. And then you pray together, and then you counsel. So friend group, intimate friend group that you open up to that knows your inner, your full inner being and what you go, on your non-best days, right? That'll celebrate with you on your best days and lift you up on your bad days.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed with that, and that helps because they will point us right back to God and then back to each other.
Yeah.
When we go on walks, like, it's just time for us to process. I always call those like our marriage counseling walks, like they're our prayer walks, and we have these beautiful trails that we get to walk on. And so you're in nature, you're connecting with God's creation, and we've had so much insight from the Lord on those walks. And I don't know, it's kind of like some people talk about car rides, like it's easier to talk to your kids or whatever. Like, I don't know, it's easier for us to talk and process through problems when we're on our walks. And so we get a lot of insight from the Lord on those times. And before that, when we didn't have trails and stuff, we would toss a football. And I think men need that, like with our son too. We shoot hoops or toss a ball, and they are able to process better doing something. And so that's just a silly little thing that we do, but we have to be able to communicate and talk through things, or we wouldn't be able to get through things. That's for sure. Yeah. And then the vacations are so important.
Yep.
I've talked to so many couples, and they take family vacations. Oh, sorry. Those are not vacations. Those are fun
That's what
memories.
I said. People are like, oh, did you enjoy your family vacation? I was like, I would like to call it a family adventure.
Yeah.
Because we're bonding and we're experiencing life, and it's fun, and we do vacate in a way. But it's not in this sense of like, you're just going to go chill.
There's
and
no
just
relaxation.
disconnect.
Yeah.
It's more of like, and that's fine with me. I love the activity.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean. It's like a
Yes.
different category.
100%. And I mean, and also, I mean, I'm just going to say this right now, like, intimacy is so important, and it's a space and a place to reconnect. And so we need that, we need that. So
Every couple does.
yeah. So I would just say that's so important. So we had to prioritize doing that. And during that time too, we try to cast vision and set goals for ourselves and our marriage and our family. And again, we hold them loosely, but we surrender them to the Lord. And so I just think that husband-wife time is so critical.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't have to be fancy or anything, but just the time together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really is the blessing that came out of 2020, right? With COVID, right? The 2 weeks to slow the spread. You sit there for a couple of days, kind of panicked. What are we doing? And then at that point, we're like, okay, well,
Let's enjoy it.
let's enjoy it. Here's what we can do. We can go for walks. And then we realized that we did, open up and talk a lot. Taking, just going and getting a hotel room for a day in Granbury or for 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. And even though we miss our kids and we love them and we want to be with them, there's times when mom and dad need to, we need our own time, to become intimate and to build our strength so we can come back and be better, moms and dads to you.
Yeah.
We got to teach on that more.
And so we have to.
Yeah.
I think it's
The
important.
relationship that all of them came from can't get weaker. It's got to stay strong.
Yes.
It has to. We made the first two children, our two children, never slept in bed with us. Right. And so then the mistake that we made with the youngest, because we had moved to Houston and we were in a 2-bedroom apartment. So Gavin and Ryan had bunk beds in their room, and then Noah,
As soon as she could climb out of the crib, she would come and get in bed with us.
And we just let her stay there for a while, for too long. But, that's where it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to go on vacation.
We had to get more creative.
Or we're going to have to get more creative and spend time together. And we did. But then also, like I said, on the walks, you talk, and that form of intimacy, of opening up and sharing with one another, praying with one another, that just makes the other forms of intimacy that much better.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. So yeah, I think that's something we'll always do. Right. I don't know if we're going to leave our kids any money at the end, but we're going to give them, a lot of experiences.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been our focus, and moving with one another, right? Going to Israel, we can't afford it, but we're going to do it, right? Going to Greece. Well, Elijah Cole wouldn't be turning 18 months had we not gone to Greece,
That reminds me of, so Ricky's parents.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all met them, became friends with them, the Backuses, Rick and Tammy. when they were here afterwards, and he saw that you were pregnant, and it's the first time back, and he kind of looked at me and said, "Did that happen in Israel?" I said, "No, it happened in Greece."
Yep.
When was Greece? I said, "Right after Israel."
Right after Israel.
We were
Yeah.
like,
So
wow.
then he walked up to you all and like, "Well, Greece was really good.
It was
wasn't
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Greece was amazing. Everyone should go.
Everyone should go. But be,
And
but
you
be
should go to
careful.
Israel.
They serve you great food. We had a hot tub on the balcony.
Yeah.
And you're overlooking the Mediterranean.
Yeah. We were in a cave. It was the coolest thing.
It was pretty awesome. but
beautiful.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
Incredible.
Honeymoon.
I know he's planning that. I'm not gonna know what it is
Oh,
until he's done
wow.
planning it.
okay.
That's exciting.
It
Ooh,
is.
cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a good.
awesome.
That's a
Yeah,
good,
that's good.
way to restrain control there.
Thank
Make,
you.
make
Thank
my
you.
girl with all the strength that you've got.
no. Wow.
Follow his lead.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so he told me to get my passport, which I already had, and then get global entry and something else. I don't remember, but
Is your passport
Wow.
current? Okay.
That's
Okay.
exciting.
That's
so
exciting.
we could go wherever. But I do love this idea. If he happens to listen to this before he's made his plans.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and-
We'll plant some seeds, Brandon.
yeah.
Well, on the Real Strength podcast, one of the things we try to do is be real.
Yeah.
It doesn't do any good to just do what thousands of others are doing. Here, I'm going
Yeah.
to teach you the Bible. Now go do it.
Right.
So in a way, there is a key element in that. Somebody needs to teach, and somebody needs to receive the teaching and then try to apply the teaching. But it almost always gets down to, especially marriage, it almost always gets down to, does anybody struggle with what we struggle with? Does anybody have the disagreements that we do? Can anybody give me some pointers on how we can get out of this hole we're
Right.
in? Can anybody help us to know how we undo things that got tied in before we knew they shouldn't have gotten tied in?
Yeah.
And so that conversation we had at dinner that night in Israel in the basement, I think we were in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Dawn was in the conversation a lot more than me, but she was impressed with how you all had found a way to work your way through obstacles that could derail most couples.
Right.
But you all chose to press into the Lord, and I was just curious to hear some of the examples,
Yeah.
and they've been rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that they're so attainable. There are little steps in every aspect, spirit, soul, and body, little steps towards each other, little
Yeah.
steps towards the Lord,
Yeah.
taken often, make the most gain over, the long haul. And everyone feels like when they're in a hole, they have to make a giant step somehow. And like even the moment of honesty, you're like, oh, it was so small, like it was easy to offer grace.
Yeah.
Is a small step for you, a big step for him, but it was still a step you both took.
Yeah.
I think to me, there's several things I'm taking out of this conversation, but just to encourage couples listening, and what I'm taking from it is, don't stop taking steps. Even if
Right.
you feel like you're under a mountain of issues or in a giant hole,
It's good, Bree.
just
Right.
take a step with your spouse somewhere. Take a step in the spirit, take a step in your emotional health, or take a step
Yeah.
in physical health towards each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And step towards the Lord instead of towards what was the word used earlier? Just something to medicate. I think that's we have a choice, right, in that moment, and we can either step towards the Lord, or we can step towards the world, like
Yeah.
something of the world. And even in my angriest moment, in an argument, in a heated argument with him, I would still open my Bible begrudgingly, and I would read something, and it was something that I didn't want to hear from the Lord in that moment. So I'd slam it shut, and then I'd walk into the room, and then I would plant my face in the ground, and I would cry out to God. And again, God would always show up in those moments. He always does. And so, but it's that choice in the moment. If I had chosen to go pour me another glass of wine or whatever that is, or just stuff it away and pretend, because I can do that pretty easily, stuff it away and pretend, it's just an unhealthy, it's an unhealthy choice. And so that would always come back to haunt me later in our marriage. So yeah, just the next right step. That's really good.
The next right step forward.
That's very
right.
good.
I mean, waking up every morning and putting on the full armor of God, right? I mean, there's one area of the body that has no armor on it, right? And it's the back, right? It's because we're supposed to be moving forward. And so in our marriage, that's kind of what we're looking to do every day, is just move forward. Not stay stagnant where we are. Let's get better, because we've got 5 kiddos that we're putting this on display for. Right. We have, and they are first and foremost, right, outside of friends and other family. Like, we need to love each other well. That doesn't mean love each other perfectly,
Right.
but let's just love each other well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Lots of good nuggets.
Love it. Thank
Well,
you so much.
They've got appointments.
It's been so fun.
Thank you so much for your honesty.
I was just
in
now
this conversation.
relaxing. I'm ready to go now.
Another hour.
I know.
This
No,
is
but
awesome. We totally enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Honestly, I was so nervous because I was like, what do we have to offer? But we have gone through a lot of hardships and a lot of crazy. So I think hopefully if someone can get something out of that and what we've learned through those experiences.
Oh yeah.
Oh, out of the thousands that watch or listen, the Lord's going to speak to many.
Yeah.
So thank you all for being real on the Real Strength podcast.
Yes.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Social
you.
media is fake, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I think because people always they make comments. Oh, y'all look so perfect and beautiful, blah blah. blah. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You have
This is
no
the highlight
idea.
reel.
That was
Yes.
the moment that they got the photo.
Yeah.
But led up to that, right before that, and right after, no,
Yeah.
not so much.
No, there's been so much joy. There's been a blessing upon blessings that we have. I mean, yes, hardships 100%, lessons 100%, but oh my goodness, we have experienced so much joy together, undeserved.
Oh yeah,
So grateful. So grateful.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, and laugh together. So
It's important.
dad jokes are the best,
Laugh at yourself.
Oh yeah,
Eh,
dad jokes.
Dad jokes.
and laugh at yourself. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just being able to laugh, and enjoy spending time with one another. Because marriages do change. They will. I mean, you and Don are celebrating. Did you just celebrate
Just
your
celebrated 41.
41,
Wow.
right? And so at every 10-year mark, the marriage was probably different. You've gone through different things and experienced different things. But the one thing we've always been able to do is just have a good time with one another
Yeah.
and enjoy
Yeah.
each
It's
other.
important.
That's so important. And
Yeah.
going back to those vacations, you remind yourself why you fell in love in the first place too, because you can forget that in the daily routines of life. You can forget that why, and so yeah, we need to book another one.
I'll look into it.
Well, Dad, do you want to close us out?
How do I do that? You always do it.
I'll close us out. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation, and thank you so much for your feedback and letting us know how you want to be strengthened. I hope and pray you're strengthened and that you would share this and comment. Keep asking your questions because we want to answer
Yes.
those for you. And as always, we just hope you're strengthened in spirit, soul, and body. And we love to close it out with a peace out. So I think we're going to look
Y'all
at the
ready?
center camera.
Yeah.
So pick your which one?
Oh,
This
that one.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Peace
Peace
out.
out.